Good morning. I have teeth, look. I can smile on my show. Now my wife convinced me to put my teeth in and get used to them. A little bit tough. It's a plate, so it goes in and it covers the teeth that are out. It's not a full plate. If I had a full plate, maybe it would be a little bit better, depending. But anyway, good morning. Rob here from my garage. I have to do my show on my phone for a little bit because my tablet is all full up. It's like at capacity almost. With videos that I put out and I can't get rid of them to clean it up. So it just builds and builds and then it's just tapped out. So I do my show on my phone from my garage this morning. I am finishing up this article that I was reading in The Unsearchable Riches today. Or I'll go through as much as I can. It was called The Light of the Consummation. Okay, I gotta let my cat in. It's yowling at the door. Come on. Come on. Get in there. There we go. Cat will just meow at the door. All right. Sacrifice before disruption. Next to the consummation, the subjector's preparation sheds the most light on this theme. He did not wait until sin had invaded the universe to provide a remedy. The lambkin was slain from the disruption. Revelation chapter 13, verse 8. And foreknown before it. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 20. Did the subjector sacrifice his son to reveal his love and then gamble the possibility that it would be appreciated? No, indeed. Being human, we should know that he could not even trust us to sin if left to our own volition. So after the sacrifice had been prepared, and for us today, after he had actually offered his son for us, he locked us up in stubbornness. Romans chapter 11, verse 30. What choice or option had we in the matter? We might never have either sinned or believed of our own choice. And so it is with Satan and the rest of his creatures. The consummation is composed of those lost and saved, those estranged and reconciled. Moral evil. There's no greater moral evil than to degrade the subjector to the stature of a human. Very few men have murdered a fellow man, but the subjector has doomed the whole race, not merely to a sudden death, but in the majority of cases, to the dreadful endurance of a long dissolution. If he is on the same level as a man, then he is unutterably worse than any man, even Stalin, whom most of us know about. Then he is not love, but hate. May he forgive my mentioning it. Confession, not accusation. Some think that Satan will hurl this accusation at the subjector just before he is bound for the 1,000 years and cast into the submerged chaos. Revelation 20, verses 1 through 3. But that would be an admission which is entirely foreign to his character and would make him a subject long before the time. If he were, would he seek to deceive the nations again as soon as he is loosed? That would involve the subjection which cannot come until the consummation. The subjector's plan for the eons which he has made known to us already demands that humanity be rid of him for 1,000 years. But then once more, be subjected to his sway for a brief period to expose their depravity even after a millennium of prosperity. So during that 1,000 years, Satan's going to be bound up and locked up in the submerged chaos. He won't be able to deceive anybody for 1,000 years. But what proof is that? Human within themselves have a depraved heart. So God will expose that after Satan is bound up for that 1,000 years. He'll expose the real deal in a human being because he does know the heart of man. He knows every single heart He knows what's in the heart. And he has given the faith of Jesus Christ to understand that and believe that. But then his work is done after the 1,000 years, and he has given a needed taste of suffering, even as he had inflicted it on billions of human souls, before he also will be ready for, then he will be ready for reconciliation. Being a spirit without flesh and blood, so lacking sensation, it would not be as severe for him as for humans, but will last longer. Satan is a marvelous and mighty creature. God's creature. God had formed the fugitive serpent. Read it in Job. He has been sinning from the beginning. Read that in 1 John. He is a liar, a murderer from his origin. But God made him that way. And he is a marvelous and mighty creature. To be able to bring all mankind, or to bring on mankind all the torment of the Aeonian times, for which an equitable requital would seem to demand, close to an eternity of torment. Right. So during this wicked eon, he's operating. He is the prince of the air, and he has his minions up there in the heavens. We are going to replace him as members of the body and rule and reign with Christ. So yeah, he is operating above among the celestials. And we're going there to kick him out of there and replace him. He will be a footstool for our feet. But the torment he does receive is not meted out to him to estrange him further from the subjector, but to prepare him for reconciliation. Then he will not hurl such an accusation against him, but acknowledge him as his subjector, as a confession of his own impotence. For at the consummation his dupes, all creatures of whom he had been the false subjector, will then be obedient children of that subjector, whom he had defied, and no longer be under his adverse influence. All will be subject to the Father, none to the adversary. The subjector will be all and in all. Satan will be nothing to anyone. 1 Corinthians 15:28. Calumniation, blasphemy. Like the Apostle Paul, we also are being calumniated by those who aver that we are saying we should be doing evil, that good may be coming, whose judgment is fair or deserved. Romans 3:8. They base their reasoning on the major premise that God, the subjector, is on the same level as man. Thus, if a man forces you to kill another, he cannot blame you for it. So with their God, quote unquote, if he wills you to sin, he is the real sinner. This is blasphemy. If I give poison to another man and he dies, I am a murderer. But even a human healer should kill a sick man. But even if a human healer should kill a sick man and then raise him from the dead in perfect health and endless life, what jury would convict him of any evil whatever, even if he did kill according to the law and evidence? Correctly cutting. This passage, doing evil that good may be coming, is in that part of the Roman epistle which deals with the conduct of mankind. Romans 1:18 and chapter 3 verse 20. It deals with humanity as a whole, apart from justification. Romans chapter 3 verses 21 and chapter 4 verse 28. Conciliation, Romans chapter 5 verse 1 and chapter 8 verse 27. Or the subjector's sovereignty, Romans chapter 8 verses 28 through 39. Either personal or national, Romans chapter 9 verses 1 through 11. No, not Romans chapter 9 verse 1 and chapter 11 verse 36, sorry. The conduct of the saints, Romans chapter 12 verse 1 and chapter 15 verse 7, is altogether different matter. For mankind as a whole is estranged and not subject to the subjector, while the saints, having his spirit and knowing his will, can avoid sinning and can give up their will for his. and even can do evil that good may come, if it is not their will to do so. But their obedience to his will, as written in his word, they are told to avoid saints who make dissensions. Romans chapter 16, verse 17. They may be evil, quote unquote, if it was their will, but good if it is his will. For he will transform it into good, which they cannot do. And what did Paul say? I do what I don't want to do in Romans there, but it's the sin that's making its home in me that's doing it. Interesting. You know something? The opposite is always true. So if you look at the scriptures and you're reading and studying the scriptures, the opposite of what you're thinking is usually the truth. Because honestly, it is only God's Spirit that can give you a realization of it in the first place. So that's what gleaning, and that's what I mean by God's teaching in the scriptures. It's going to come to you as God gives it to you. He gives the measure of faith. Whether some of us have very little faith or more faith, who gives a crap? The main foundation that Christ died, he was entombed and was roused the third day. Simple belief, childlike belief. If you believe that, yes, then you can go from there, from that foundation to a spiritual height where you can understand the spiritual realm and what God is operating up there, including Satan himself. We know he's operating up there. So this is why we can believe it. Because we believe that simple faith. The faith of Jesus Christ that is given to you to understand that, yes, he did die. Yes, he was raised on the third day. He died for 3 days. False judging. The man of Romans chapter 3, verses 6 through 8 assumes that God must judge the world in the same way as man judges. If the subjector's truth superabounds through my lie, then I must be credited with the resulting blessing, no matter what my motives were. This is absolutely false. Let us illustrate it by a parable. A man waits to kill his enemy. He stands on a high cliff as his adversary is about to pass below. He loosens a large boulder and shoves it over so that it will crush his enemy as he passes the spot. But a big bear appears below at an instant, so that his foe flees from it as fast as he can, with the bear after him. Then the boulder hits the bear and kills it. So the murderer saves the life of the man he wished to kill. Will a human court condemn him for murder? No, indeed. He may be commended for rescuing his enemy from the wild beast. Not so before the court of the subjector, as he told Samuel in Samuel 16:7. Man sees with the eyes, yet Yahweh sees the heart. So our Lord told his disciples to judge. John chapter 7, verse 24. God will judge the hidden things of humanity. Romans chapter 2, verse 16. The effect of our actions cannot be controlled by us. We may do our utmost to save a man from death, and yet inadvertently kill him. Are we guilty? No. It is the motive that counts with the subjector. He is motivated by love. So whatever he does is good. But when he transforms our evil into good, he does not give us the credit. Men must be set right or judged, either as unbelievers in the future or as believers now through the blood of our Savior and the death of our reconciler. Okay, I still got more to read, and I think I'll wait till tomorrow. This is good. And this is perfect. Amazing stuff. So understanding the truth. How do you understand truth? How do you actually be a believer? How do you know that you were called before the disruption? If you are believing simple truth that Christ died and was entombed and was roused the third day. Simple belief. That's all you have to believe. Right there. And then all the beautiful truths and all the beautiful revelations and the heights and where we are going and are snatching away, all these things come as blessings for believing and standing on the foundation of Christ. That's it. I love you all. Have a wonderful Monday.